Okay, so I'm going to talk to you just over the next half an hour about 3 different projects that I've been involved in, which I've used almost exclusively plants from Wyevale. And some of you might have been at the little talk that Kate and I gave right at the start of today, talking about the Chelsea trends. But I really am passionate about the quality of Wyevale plants. I was blown away the first time I came here. I'm sure you've enjoyed your tour as well. But the quality of the plants are phenomenal. And when you're working with clients, I'm sure a lot of you know, they don't really understand if the plant looks a bit scruffy. It doesn't really matter. They want them looking great and pristine. And I can always rely on Wyevale for that. 2 of the projects that I'm going to show you really were show gardens, or to be technically accurate, feature gardens, because they weren't judged. But the first one was for the RHS at Malvern. I'm going to take you through some of the design ideas behind that garden. So this was the celebrity feature stage for 2014. And my big idea, and anyone who's trained with me, and there's poor people sitting in the audience who are still being trained by me, know that I talk a lot about having a big idea as a garden designer. That's very important to a planting designer. What is the core principle that hangs all of your design choices together? In this case, it was trying to create a stage for the autumn show at Malvern, which celebrated the fact that autumn is the right time to plant, because we've forgotten that. Lots of our customers have forgotten that, and I'm on a mission to try and remind people of that. It was also about celebrating that a garden can look great in the autumn and winter, and as designers we all know that more and more we're designing planting to leave things standing through the winter, to enjoy the seed heads. We don't have to cut everything back in the autumn and stick it in the compost bin. We can enjoy the garden for summer and for winter. So that's my big idea that I'm working to. And what I do a lot with my students and for myself is design using mood boards. So I'm creating a mood board for autumn, one for winter and one for spring, that helps me identify what the colours, shapes and textures are for each of those 3 ideas. So sure enough, some of these images are truly wintry and frosty, but some of them, are plants which just have the colours, shapes and textures of winter. And I'm using the mood boards to help me identify those. And that's what I'm hoping this stage is going to look like. Autumn at the back, winter at the sides, spring at the front, and Monty Don looking like he's walking on water, which for me, he kind of does. So things have changed a lot through the development process. Pardon?
That wasn't Monty Don. That was
no, it wasn't Monty Don. You were meant to use some imagination. That was Monty Don reincarnated as his female alter ego.
Oh, right.
It was actually Anne-Marie Powell, I think. Okay, so this is kind of my master layout plan. This is the garden's only 9 metres by 5 metres, and here it is a SketchUp. We use SketchUp a lot. I'm sure you do too. The big idea being we've got spring planting at the front. By now we've got the winter planting more as we're in the middle section. Autumn at the back. And I was going to use glass panels covered in sticky designs. I've forgotten the name of it. It's like a plastic laminate that you can design and you peel it off, stick it on the glass. It's got very dark grey at the front and a sort of frosted effect at the back. Really I wanted to use Angie Lewin artwork, but couldn't afford her, so I knocked something together myself, which was sort of celebrating that frosty seed head idea. That's Angie Lewin, very on trend, celebrating winter seed heads. That's Caroline Tatham, not quite as beautiful, but kind of gets the idea. So one sticker was this dark grey, another set of stickers were these frosted, really evoking that frosty feel. Oh, now where am I? Here I am at Wyevale. And that's Colin, I think, isn't it? Chris! Oh, apologies to Chris. I'm dyslexic, so names and me sort of don't get on. And I was really excited when I came to look around and found that tree for my feature garden. And I couldn't believe the price. It was amazing value compared to what I paid for the previous year. This is one of my nifty 50, Paris Chanticleer. It's a fantastic tree, all wrapped up there, ready for transit. And here are some of my long-suffering students over at Malvern now. We're getting the plants delivered. We're starting to build the stage. Everyone's very excited. Lots of watering going on. It's very windy at Malvern. Anyone who's built a garden at Malvern, you know, lots of irrigating because it's always so windy. The stage was built in modules and sections because after the show, it's going to go over to the Cheltenham Literature Festival. And we called the garden A Brave New World of Beauty, partly because we're celebrating the seed heads, but also because in 2014, the Cheltenham Literature Festival theme was Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. So all of this had to get broken down and go in a van and get transported over to Cheltenham, and we had 3 days to rebuild it. So it was a bit of a challenge. To be honest, the autumn is a stupid time to build a show garden anyway, but then to have to break it down and build it back up again was even more stupid. But there you go, I like a challenge. So the structure's starting to come together. Here we are at Malvern in the main speaker's marquee, and all my lovely plants are being lined up here, like an artist puts their palettes together. I've got no planting plans, but I very much have got those mood boards in my head as I'm then starting to put the plants together, just like we did really over at Wyevale to do the trends. So plants are coming in, I'm all the time thinking about my colours, shapes and textures. Here my glass panels have gone in with decal stickers, that's what they're called, decal stickers on. And there you get a nice look at those. They created quite a nice visual effect. One of my ideas with the design of the stage was that I wanted to frame the celebrities, literally actually frame them, and that worked really well on some of the photography. Here my lovely cedar deck is all covered up because of my muddy booted builders, but you can see I've got my spring at the front, winter in the middle and autumn at the back. And I hope you agree that with that planting it really feels wintry. It's got a frosty colour, shape and texture vibe going on, even though it's obviously not actually frosty. This is the back of the stage, and back here's the green room. Monty Don's in there, and no one else is going to see that, but I couldn't have Monty looking at ugliness, so I made that look as beautiful as the front, even though it was just for me and him. It was our private little moment that we shared together. Very important. On any stage, getting the lighting right, obviously absolutely critical, so we spent a lot of time doing that. And rather pretentiously, I don't mind admitting, I put these metal fish to signify the transition of time through the seasons, as a bit like a fish swimming through the water. The deck is revealed, makes a big difference. And I'm sure you know already, wherever you've got water in a garden, you've got reflections. And that's very much what using water is about, isn't it? Also very important, it includes some of your celebrities to sit, so they can have their photos taken. Very important too. And I had I was one of the speakers at this event, and I was sitting in the green room, sharing a slightly awkward, if I'm honest, conversation with guess who Monty Don, who was probably thinking, oh my God, I need a restraining order at this point. There was a lovely lady talking about foraging on stage. I've forgotten the name, Liz, I think she's called Liz. And all of a sudden the entire audience erupted into hordes of laughter, and I thought, I just had a sixth sense as to what had happened. She came backstage with one very wet foot. She said, I thought that was granite. No. Luckily it was only 20 centimetres deep, so no harm was done. Oh dear, looks like Joe's making me nod off there a bit. So we had a lot of fun on the stage as well. We won Best Feature Garden for it too from OHS, which was very nice. But 3 days later, it looked like that. And I'm sure you've all been through this as well. We had 3 days again to put it all back together, which it did very well. I love using this as an example for my students of how things shrink when they're outdoors. Because we're used to always seeing things in rooms at a sort of human scale. But the minute you take something and put it outside, the scale of it seems to shrink down enormously. So that was a lovely thing then to follow through. But notice how much smaller it looks outside than it looks inside the marquee, which is interesting. Interesting to me anyway. Okay, so I then had another challenge. That wasn't challenge enough. Malvern said, right, we want you to do the stage. Big success, loved your stage. Can you do another one? But here's the problem. We've only got £5,000. Ouch. Could you just break up the stage, reinvent it and do it, chop it up, make it into something else? And I sat there for a couple of days designing on SketchUp, but everything I came up with looked like I'd chopped it up and reinvented it, and it just all looked a bit second-hand. So then I thought, okay, what I'm going to do is unashamedly use the same stage, because I've done spring and autumn and winter, now I'm going to do summer. And what's summer about? Summer's about light, so I'm just going to cover the whole thing in mirrors. So we didn't use glass, A, because I couldn't afford it, but B, I couldn't afford the insurance in case it garrotted Carol Klein. So we actually used Perspex with an aluminium backing, which worked very well. So the SketchUp model here, the same stage, but I'm using my mirror to create an almost hall of mirrors effect. So the reflections are reflecting off each other. And also I was hoping I wouldn't need quite so many plants, sorry Wyevale, just because I didn't have much money. And also Wyevale told me Malvern told me at the last minute, your stage is going to be in the middle of nowhere, and it's on a big slope. So the whole garden had to sort of be lifted on a wedge of cheese, effectively, to lift it up. So technically challenging. Every single one of these plants came from Wyevale. And one of my trends that I talk about as well is the return of the shrub. Shrubs are coming back because we've been beguiled by perennials and grasses for a long time, quite rightly so. But shrubs, if you're saying, which I do ad nauseum, that good planting is about colour, shape and texture and contrast and harmony of those three things, you can get that just as effectively from a shrub as you can from those other plants. Don't get me wrong, grasses and perennials, I love them and they've very much got a place. But we've rather forgotten how wonderful shrubs are, what good doers they are. So I wanted to use a lot of them in this garden. So all of these plants supplied by Wyevale. And here's my stage. I've resanded it off and covered it in mirrors. And just that different texture has completely reinvented the space. It's now filled with light. Oh, nearly all the plants have gone in. It's always amazing how many plants it takes to create a show garden or a feature garden. Again, getting the lighting right. Quite a lot of yellow in there. This is sort of just as yellow is starting to come back in as a trend from Chelsea. Still there, as we were saying earlier today. But it's all about those colours, shapes and textures. We were mentoring the show gardens last year, so that's some of the students who were there building the gardens. James Alexander Sinclair, what a show-off! Can't help it, can he? But no, we had a lovely time at Malvern, and thanks to our lovely plants from Wyevale, it was a great big success. Okay, the last thing I want to talk to you about was a really exciting project I was very lucky to be involved in this year, which was Highgrove. And there was a festival in April. Kate Doe is going to be speaking at 2 o'clock this afternoon. She was the creative director of the festival. She graduated from our one-year garden design course last year and has gone on to do many great things. That's just one of them. And she kindly invited me to design the speaker's stage because she'd seen that I'd done it at Malvern. And many of the students very kindly came to help build it. So I'm looking at one lovely person there, and Lynn's around. There's another one standing up. Lynn did a lot of the building, which was very much appreciated. So one of the challenges about this stage was that I was asked to sort of evoke the spirit of Highgrove, but I'm in Highgrove. That's a bit of a challenge, isn't it? Because whatever I do, it's in danger of looking like a second-rate version of the real thing. Okay, so I was thinking, okay, how am I going to do this? And right at the beginning, it was all pulled together rather quickly, Kate might be mentioning, but right at the beginning, that's all I knew, was that that was the colour palette. That's all I had to go on, that was it. At the time of year, we didn't even have that right at the beginning, and it was going to be sort of a lovely burgundy colour, which did slightly change, but not completely, and a lovely fresh yellow. So based on that, and thinking about some of the work I've done at Malvern, of course I've got my mood boards, because it always starts for mood boards for me. And one of the challenges is finding plants that are going to be in flower that early in the year. I don't know if anyone's done any kind of show or feature garden at that time of the year. It's getting colour and it's getting height. So Kate and I were regularly coming along here, hounding them, being locked in to sort of make people missing their trips home in the evening. We were literally locked in, just scouring the nursery, trying to find what was going to give us height and colour, and they were fantastic. They put things specially into polytunnels for us, and they were really knowledgeable and informative about what kind of plants that we could use. Kate was checking these against her list of what was actually growing in the garden, and this was the sort of idea behind the speaker's stage for Highgrove. Originally, Kate and I found these beautiful reclaimed gates in this funny little lock-up area, which we were going to use for the stage, and I suddenly thought, do you know what, if that falls over and squashes somebody, I'm not sure that I can live with that. So we decided in the end to change these for some willow panels, which I'm going to show you. Ah, Lynn, there you are! And Michelle! And there, Ellie. So here we are at Wyevale, trying to will on the pomonias or pomonarias to grow. Yeah.
And look how cold it looks.
Oh, it was cold, sorry. It was cold. But we were really amazed. And every time I come to Wyevale, genuinely, I discover something else that they do. And I didn't realise they did such fantastic topiary, actually. So I learned that on this trip. But they're such a good team to work with, because what I was doing was putting a list together of what I wanted, emailing it over to the guys, and nothing is too much trouble. So they were doing their absolute best to make sure that they could deliver what we needed. Sorry, ladies, to put you back in the spotlight. So these are our hopeful plants. We're quite early on at this stage. We don't know whether they're going to make it or not. But we're certainly a bit more sure about the topiary. We're hoping no one's going to buy them in the meantime, so that we can definitely have them. Oh, sorry. Okay, and this was my solution to those gates. Something much lighter, to get something made bespoke out of willow. I used a wonderful willow artist called J. Davey. He's based in Somerset, and he's unbelievably reasonable. You can basically send him anything and he'll make it out of willow. So that was a good solution, which luckily Highgrove liked the idea. So here they are being delivered. So I've managed to get him to weave in the royal feathers into those willow panels. Amazing, really. So that's the rather unexciting looking space. Sorry, Your Royal Highness. So that's we were very pleased to be there and very privileged to be allowed to even take these photographs, to be honest, because it's strictly no photography at Highgrove, but they did allow me to take photographs of the stage, which I was very grateful for. So again, it was built in modular form. There's that purple colour that you saw on the mood board. Our willow panels have gone in place, and here's the all-important screen. A bit of fun and games getting that to work. There's a student still smiling through the painting. All very good-natured. And then the best thing, the whole place comes alive when the plants come in. They're the most important element. This fatsia, there's a thing. Kate's smiling at the back of the room. And she thought I was nuts when I picked that fatsia. But I was hoping it would do a good job for me in terms of form, because it's so architectural, which it did. But even more than that, what I didn't know was this room was in nearly complete darkness. I should have thought of that, shouldn't I? Because I know there's a projector, and I know that there's speakers, but it somehow never occurred to me that it would be almost complete darkness. This planting has got to look good for a whole week. And I thought, I hope it's still looking good on the last day. And luckily, plants like fatsia, which are very shade tolerant, were absolutely in their element. And particularly because that's spider's web. It was very commented on, actually, at the show. And so that really was a good doer. We were blessed that Adrian had these header balls that were just the right colour for our purple. And here we're sort of filling up, arranging, sort of creating a planting effect. The interesting thing you'll see is these tulips, by the end of being in darkness for a week, are nearly as tall as that sign. Because the poor things are saying, I'm sure if I keep growing, I'm going to find light somewhere. I've just got to keep trying. So you can see that colour palette that we had on the mood board is there. Getting the lighting right, very important. This spirea here was very, very admired as well. And it looked good for a week. It did its job. This shrub I absolutely love. It's called Sorbaria. I don't know if you know it. It's got a reputation of being a bit old-fashioned, a bit of a granny shrub. It all comes back in again. And, it's a good doer for coloured foliage. There I am, waxing lyrical, a bit like I'm doing now. And finally, is it how we're doing on time? Are you all getting a bit hot? I'll sort of power through this one for you. I just thought I'd show you some real client work. It's all well and good doing these arty-farty feature gardens, but how about real clients? This is a client of mine, and I'm developing the whole garden, but as a sort of quick fix, they wanted some planting in a couple of areas. And you know me, it all starts with mood boards, so we explored options of colour palettes. This is a mood board for one area of the garden. They call it the New English Garden. It's a bit like Hidcote, basically. And of course, there's always a trip to Wyevale involved, and I always usually manage to bring some students along with me to come and have a look at the plants. I think you're there, Anthea, were you? Was that you? No, just someone who looks like you. Hard to imagine anyone else, so lovely. So here's one of my planting plans for that job. And as I'm sure a lot of you know, how we start is by putting the shapes in first, choosing the plant second. And let me tell you a big confession. When I designed this, the client wanted it in situ from the 5th of January this year. I sat down, I had my mood boards, but the first thing I did when I chose my plants was get up the Wyevale plant list in front of me. Because that way I know that everything's going to be available, it can all get delivered. I'm not going to get disappointed, I'm not going to waste weeks chasing plants that aren't available. They're all there, they're all readily available. And I was more than enough choice for me to be able to fill up. There were a few extra things like some David Austin roses, but mostly it was Wyevale plants. So here I've completed my planting plans. I'm doing some visuals for the clients to show them elevations of what that planting is going to look like. And this is where the planting is going. 2 areas, 6 of these boxed edged borders, not easy to say, which are going around the house. And also here, we've got the long thin borders. So there are 4 of these. 2 with a beautiful view at one end, and 2, there's a gorgeous seat here, I'm sat on it, can't see it, it's a lovely arts and crafts bench. So I'm going to fill that with plants, and the brief was they wanted it instant. They wanted it to look like it had always been there. And again, thank you to my lovely students, because a lot of them sitting in the audience are about to star. Sorry ladies, we're going to have some pictures of you looking gorgeous. But this is how good Wyevale are. I asked Adrian very cheekily if I could please have Dutch trolleys for the same price, but because I was placing a nice big order, look how beautifully they're packaged and presented, and that didn't cost me any extra. And the Dutch trolleys, I have to say, were a complete lifesaver, because this is £16,000 worth of plants. Just moving them about would have been a total nightmare. And yes, we had to put some timbers down because we were going over gravel and turf in a few places, but mostly those Dutch trolleys probably reduced the number of planting days by 2. You know, that's saving everyone money, so that was fantastic. Now, Helena, who's sitting in our audience, you're going to see her in a minute, because she had the very thankless task of counting them all. But that is a really important job, you know, because if they're not all there or something's gone wrong, but I can say the Wyevale plants were perfect. Is that right, Helena? They were all spot on, and that's thousands of plants, not one too many, not one not enough, all exactly as we'd ordered them, which was great. So the root ball trees going first. We used Amelanchier canadensis because they wanted year-round interest. These came from Wyevale as well. Obviously, we're getting our Dutch trolleys in situ. We start by grouping the plants. I've got lots of evergreen ground coverage here to keep the weeds out because the client's asking for as minimum maintenance, as much as you can in a border that makes Hidcote look a bit mean, you know, it's never going to be low maintenance. Look at, oh look, the slackers! The slackers! Having a cup of coffee. But no, they were working very hard, and in some really, really cold conditions as well. They did look, Helena sporting her earmuffs there rather beautifully. So there was a lot of hard work after the setting out. So I was around for the first 2 days to do the setting out. I think in total planting took about 10 days, is that about right? With a weekend break in the middle. Setting it all out. And I'm not even here now, these guys are just doing it by themselves, sending me images. Now, luckily the client is so happy with it and so excited, they keep sending me photos of it, which is great. So this spring, all those, of course, as you'd expect, the Amelanchiers doing their thing, looking fantastic. And then we're going to segue seamlessly into about 2 weeks ago. It's filling out really nicely, no chance for the weeds to get into there. And the client asked for year-round interest and colour, and they're really delighted. They feel like they've absolutely got what they asked for. And it's sitting very well with the rest of the garden. That's something we need to think about. If you're only planting up a part of the garden, you don't want it to look alien to the rest of the garden. That's really important, but it's sitting in very nicely. And then in a minute you're going to see the drama, saving it till the end of the double borders there. And I took a bit of a punt with Delphinium. It's always a risky one for clients, isn't it? Because of them needing staking, and these guys are on clay soil. But luckily, they turned out to be the plant that the client most liked, actually. He's very fond of his Delphiniums. So I've got begonias there, giving me a nice evergreen edge to the planting. And what I didn't point out, I perhaps could have done on the planting plan, is my swathes are going in diagonals, symmetrically. So they're like go faster stripes, which is taking your eye either to the bench or along to the view through the gate. I think I'm going the wrong way now. Maybe I'm not. Well, I'm going the wrong way, sorry. I'm dyslexic, I can't tell left from right. We're nearly there. Delphiniums doing their thing. So these are all Wyevale plants. And I think that's the last one. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions at all from anybody? Does that all seem self-explanatory? I'm around the rest of today, so if you think of anything and you want to just grab me, please do. I'm delighted to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you.